Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the final episode of Liam's Fight Night Picks for the year 2024. Yes, it's finally here, the rematch we've all been waiting for. Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury will be facing off again inside the Kingdom Arena in Saudi Arabia on Saturday night. I'm delighted to say that I have Matt Elliott from the Counterpunch back with me this week. How are you, mate?
I'm well, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Look, I think you got, as soon as the undercard was dropped, I had a message from you saying, get me on for this show. So I know your excitement's been there for a long time, and we're finally here. Some of the media duties coming out today just starts to whet the appetite, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I know the undercard's taken a little bit of a hit in the last 7 days, but, we're going to talk about, obviously, some of the fights that are on there. And, even without them, the main event just sort of tells the event itself, doesn't it, really? So, yeah, the first one was great. Let's hope this one lives up to that expectations and ideally is even better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, losing Madrimov and obviously Dennis McCann's failed drug test are a big blow, and obviously something that does need to be spoken about more. But all about the positivity on this show. We've got 6 fights on the card that are worth talking about, and obviously the main event, like you say, could sell out by itself, and that's what it's done. So we're going to get started in the heavyweight division, which seems rather apt. We're going to look at Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen, which I believe is a 10-rounder at heavyweight. There hasn't been anything official yet, but my understanding is it's a 10-rounder. Johnny Fisher, look, he's 12-0, he's 11 KOs, he's the Romford Bull, he's the Bosch Army, he's a big character. He's now taken that character over to Saudi Arabia to get the Turkey treatment, the riches and the big payday. Would it be fair to say we still don't quite know where the ceiling is with Johnny Fisher? We don't really know where his level is, do we?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's admirable what he's achieved so far. He's got a cult following. He's a ticket seller in the UK, which is why it's a little bit of a shame that let's hope this was a one-off, him being in Saudi to some degree, because you don't want to lose your big ticket sellers from the UK, certainly at the level he's at the minute. But no, he's impressed us. He's been knocking people out for fun. The Babic fight, that was a bit of a non-event really last time out, wasn't it? It was over before we'd even kind of blinked. But I think, I think he's got all the pedigree. Sometimes in boxing, you just need that. You need that fan buy-in, and I think he's got that. And I think Allen will be a good step up for him.
Yeah, look, both of Fisher's fights this year. He fought on the Fury Pete Dobson, the Conor Ben Pete Dobson undercard out in Vegas, and Babic were both first round stoppages. So he's kind of blink and you'll miss him this year, isn't he? Which, yeah, he's a heavyweight. You don't get paid overtime, particularly a heavyweight. You're there to make a statement, and he's done that. We'll move on to Dave Allen, his opponent. Look, the White Rhino. I feel like this is White Rhino version 635. And I say that not meaning any disrespect, but he's gone away. He's reinvented himself. He's not worked out. He's retired. He's come back. He lost to Fraser Clark on the Liam Smith Eubank Jr. rematch card, didn't he? Yeah. That was because of a perforated eardrum. What was interesting in that fight is he was getting to Fraser Clark, wasn't he? Fraser Clark was landing low blows. He was being deducted points. And okay, he probably wasn't winning the fight, Dave Allen, but he does know a few roughhouse tricks, doesn't he, to, make it a bit more of a tough watch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's why he's probably a good opponent for Johnny Fisher at this point in his career. I think nobody's necessarily expecting, great things from Dave Allen, but he can't really call him a gatekeeper because he's not been active enough. But against Clark, he put in an okay performance. I mean, it was always going to be a Clark victory for me. He stayed in there longer than I thought he would, and he gave Clark a few problems that he had to work out. And I think likewise, he should hopefully get beyond the first few rounds and give Fisher similar problems to overcome, and then we'll see really what Fisher's all about.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what Dave Allen turns up. He's had 2 4-rounders this year, and he's won them both on points. He's won them 40-36 on both. But if we're being really honest, you can't read anything into that. He's given us some great moments. The Lucas Brown's victory, the thunderous overhand right on Nick Webb when he, again, probably shouldn't have been boxing because it was only 3 weeks after Tony Yoka had stopped him back in 2019. He's always been there or thereabouts. But when it really matters, Lenroy Thomas, David Price, Tony Yoka, Fraser Clark, he's sort of fallen short, hasn't he? So I guess we're going to find out what's left from Dave Allen. He's either got one last big performance in him, or unfortunately he's going to turn up and be rolled over, isn't he?
He isn't, but he looks in good nick. I have to say, he looks as if he's taking camp seriously. And look, it's a chance to go out there, get a Saudi payday. He possibly does walk away, as you say. He's walked away many times before, but maybe this is one last hurrah, chance to fight on a big stage, get a good paycheck, and just trouble one of the up and coming prospects, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with you, mate. So we'll get a prediction from you for this fight. How do you see Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen going down?
I think Allen will take him, depending on how many rounds it is, I think Allen will take him into the second half of the fight. I think ultimately Fisher might break him down at that point and stop him.
Yeah, I'm in of similar ilk to you. Obviously, we're still waiting for official confirmation of how many rounds it is. No reason to suggest it wouldn't be anything less than a 10-rounder, is there? It wouldn't really make sense, especially with Fisher's path. For me, I think, Allen's going to have his moments. I think Johnny will be cautious. He's probably knows he can't go out there all guns blazing like we saw him do against Babic. Do you expect a stoppage, though, from Johnny Fisher? I'm going to say between round 6 and 8. I think it'll take him time to break Dave Allen down, but he's been more active. As long as he can come through the storm that Allen is, I'm sure, going to bring, I expect Johnny Fisher to win by stoppage in this fight. So we move on to another fight on the card. Again, we don't know officially how many rounds this fight is, but it's Isaac Lowe and Lee McGregor. Again, I've got written down that it's a 10-rounder because I can't see any straps attached to it. I'm sure there might be a trinket thrown on the line from one of the governing bodies. For me, though, this potentially is the biggest mismatch on the cards. Respectfully, as I can be saying this, Isaac Lowe is yet again getting another opportunity on a Tyson Fury undercard because he's Tyson Fury's cousin. Happened against Nick Ball at Wembley. Happened on this is the third time Fury's been out in Saudi and he's been on all 3 cards. Isaac Lowe is a limited boxer, if we're being honest. And when he steps up against a certain caliber of opponent, he gets exposed. Would you say that's fair enough?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you look back at that Nick Ball fight and, I mean, what Nick Ball's gone on to do since, I suppose you've got to give Lowe some credit for staying there as long as he did. But yeah, he's getting an opportunity because of the sort of the relationship to Tyson. He's done all right of late. McGregor has, obviously lost the fight however many months ago that was now. So this is a big opportunity for him to sort of break back in. But I would kind of agree. I think if you look at all of the fights, and there are probably some other mismatches on there, but this is the one that stands out that I can only really see one winner in this one.
Yeah, look. You mentioned it there. Isaac Lowe, since his back-to-back defeats, Nick Ball and Lopez, he has gone on to win 4 fights on the spin. So let's give him some credit. They have 3 of the 4 have been 10-rounders as well. So he's had to show a bit to get through 10 rounds. So we will give him his credit. But again, that's against a certain level of opponent that doesn't have the power of Nick Ball or the movement of McGregor like we're going to get on Saturday night. They just sort of are very easy for him to break down. We'll move on to Lee McGregor, mate. 14-1-1, 11 stoppages. He's a former British, Commonwealth and European title holder. Fell short when he went for the IBO strap last year, like you just mentioned. I've always been impressed by Lee McGregor. I think that defeat did worry if it was going to derail him, did worry what was going to happen to him afterwards, but he stuck with Lee Eaton, he stuck with his team, and this is his chance on Saturday night, isn't it? It doesn't matter what he's done before. A victory on this card will propel him, especially in the featherweight division, which we know Turkey's a fan of.
Definitely. And I think he did well in stages in that IBO fight, and there was points where, you thought he might have done enough, but he sort of tired towards the end and he kind of lost a sort of grip on it to some extent. But I think, again, with him, it's about being active. And I think his boxing brain should see him through on Saturday night regardless. Whether it takes 1 round or it goes the full distance, he should have enough to overcome Isaac Lowe. And as you say, going out to Saudi, winning on these cards, impressing, it can open up a plethora of opportunities in the future. So it's an opportunity he's got to grab with both hands. Yeah,
I mean, I've just got the scorecards up from his defeat for the IBO title. It was 115, 113 times 2, 116, 113 on the other cards. So though it's a UD loss, it was an incredibly close fight, wasn't it? And that just shows pick'ems like that. It can just be a judge likes one style more in 1 round, can't it? So, yeah, look, I don't want to dwell on this fight for too long. It's probably, when it was announced, it was the only fight that made me go, why are we seeing this? But look, we know how it goes. Tyson has certain stipulations, and it seems his biggest one is always getting Isaac on cards with him. But we'll move on to a prediction, mate. How do you see this one going down?
McGregor victory. I think he could go the distance, and I think he could get a unanimous victory. Alternatively, I think he could stop him later on. But whichever way it goes, McGregor to win.
Yeah, I've got McGregor to win. I believe that his class and his skill set will show, and that will frustrate Isaac Lowe, and he'll end up walking on to something that finishes him off late in the fight. I think points is probably the safer bet, but for me, I just see McGregor making a statement. He's going to look to show that he You know, he's a serious threat. He deserves the Nick Wall fights. He deserves to go towards the world champions in this division. And a stoppage victory is my prediction for that fight on Saturday evening. So we move back up to the heavyweight division, a heavyweight theme to this show. 19 years old. He's exciting. He's British, and we're very excited by him. It is Moses Itauma taking on Demsey McKean. Look, Itauma, 10-0, 8 knockouts, 19 years old. This is the end of his third year as a professional. Sorry. What can you say? What can you say really about Moses Itauma?
I mean, he's living up to all the hype, isn't he? You know, I think when we had the chat last time, we were talking, I think, about Moses. If I recall, and we were saying, you know, it's time to drop the kind of youngest heavyweight champion tagline that they launched him with, and thankfully that's been done. But look, they've built him well. I think, you know, Queensberry have been slowly building the quality. For somebody who's had the amount of fights he's had, to be stepping into a fight with the likes of Demsey McKean at this stage is far in advance of what some of the other heavyweights would be doing. If you look at the likes of the Fisher, who's been around probably a little bit longer and isn't quite at that level. Look, I think he's a massive, exciting prospect who, when the Furies and the Usyks and the Joshuas hang their gloves up, which is in the not too distant future, he's going to be right there, you know, challenging for all the belts.
Yeah, look, let's talk about him a bit more. So this is his fourth fight of the year. So again, he's having the activity, which is fantastic. His last performance was at the O2, where he knocked out out of shape Marius Wack. He looked like he'd been in Five Guys just before he made his ring walk in 2 rounds. But being there in the arena, the buzz, I was at the O2 that night, the buzz that was around, everyone was leaving the bars to get in their seats to watch Moses Itauma. That's when you know you've got a fighter that's building well, when you can get people in out of the bars at 7:30 in the evening to watch him perform. And that's where he's going, isn't it? I mean, the one thing I will say is, you just mentioned it, youngest heavyweight champion. The WBA have decided to throw their international strap on the line for this fight. Moses is number 5 with them as it is. I think we know the pathway they're going to push for. They're going to push him towards Kubrat Pulev, aren't they, to become the youngest heavyweight champion. We don't really want to see that, do we? We don't need to see Moses against Kubrat Pulev.
No, we don't. I know he's also been ordered as the mandatory for the English heavyweight title as well, hasn't he, now, I think, against David Adelaide. And I can't imagine that that's necessarily a fight they want or need to make either. I think, you know, Queensberry will be looking to build Adelaide back up, and Itauma was probably above that level, if we're honest. So I would rather see him maybe go down the British title route. You know, depending on sort of what happens on that side, I wouldn't be adverse to seeing him in the ring with, not necessarily Fabio Wardley, but, you know, somebody, if that belt could be on the line. I don't think we need to see him in against Pulev. And if it's just, I mean, they'll look at the likes of Dubois and how that got him his opportunity ultimately. So I'm sure they'll explore it, but no, it's not a fight that I think we need to see.
Yeah. No, I think you've just touched on it there, mate. Moses should move towards British and Commonwealth title for me. By the sounds of it, Fabio Wardley is pushing towards the European title shot in his next fight. So those belts become vacant.
Yeah.
Who he fights, I mean, Adelaide will obviously be at the front of the queue as the English champion, but maybe a deal could be done for Fisher and Itauma to fight for the British. That would be a fantastic fight. 10-0 and at 12-0 before this weekend, the pair of them. So that's a fight there to be made. We'll touch on Demsey McKean quickly, just so not accused of any bias. 22-1. First time we've seen him in 16 months, and that last performance was him losing to Filip Hrgović on the Anthony Joshua Helenius undercard in an IBF eliminator. So he was IBF number 2 before that. If we're honest, though, it was a very padded record that got him to 22-0, wasn't it, before that Hrgović fight? Hrgović was a massive step up in opponent for Demsey, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think we've got to give him some credit for going as far as he did with Hrgović.
Yep.
Albeit, you know, we maybe look at Hrgovic's fights since then, and maybe that wasn't as much of a surprise as it turned out to be. But yeah, his record was padded, and I think it got him that opportunity. It was a one-sided fight on the night, and, you know, I probably expected to be a similar outcome come Saturday.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I mean, the thing that I always, when a fighter has a loss and they're not injured after a fight, which I don't believe McKean has been, I always look how long they're inactive for, because that tells me where their mindset's at. And the fact he's been out for 16 months, no record anywhere of him having any surgery or any injury that he's needs to rehabilitate from, does make you question where his head's now at with boxing. So prediction for this one, for me, it's Moses is on a certain path, isn't he? He's got a WBO trinket. He's going to get a WBA one on Saturdays, moving into the governing bodies. The question is, does he get taken rounds or will it be another blowout? I mean, they do say you can't just blow everyone out all the time. But if that's what you go in there and do, it's what you go in there and do. For me, a Moses Itauma stoppage in the second half of the fight. I don't think he's going to look to go for it early. I also think him and his team will want him to go rounds as well. But at some point, they'll let him off the lead and he'll get a stoppage. How do you see it?
I agree with you 100%. I think they'll have seen how McKean fared against Hrgovic, and I think that's probably why he's been chosen, because he will take him rounds and he needs to start going some rounds now. It's great blasting people out, but you learn nothing from it in the long run. So if he can get 6-7 rounds under his belt here, I still think he'll win. I still think it'll be a stoppage. But as you say, later on in the fight, get a bit of experience, and then that'll build him for whoever comes next.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, another step on the Moses Itauma journey, and he's with the king of building up young fighters in Frank Warren, and give full credit to that Queensbury team. They're doing an excellent job with him so far. So we'll move on to what is billed as the co-main event. It's not the fight we were originally promised. Madrimov has bronchitis and has dropped out against Serhii Bohachuk. Well, he's still on the February 22nd card, isn't he? So does he have bronchitis is what the cynic would say. But enough of that. Let's talk about Ish Davis answering the Turkey back call for the second time in 3 months. We were both there at Wembley when he jumped in on the same amount of days' notice, near enough, against Josh Kelly. And he impressed, didn't he? He gave Josh, he cut Josh and he was coming on strong in the end of the fight. And I think Ish Davis probably looks back at that wondering what if, doesn't he? What if I started earlier? What if I stuck it on Josh Kelly earlier in the fight?
Yeah, I think he probably does. I mean, I disagreed with the scorecards that night. I had it a bit wider for Josh. I think Josh does what Josh does sometimes, in that he gets so in control of a fight, he loses a bit of concentration. Perhaps, energy levels towards the end of the fight dipped, and certainly those last 3 or 4 rounds, you can't deny that Davis came on strong and did have him in big trouble in kind of the 11th and certainly the 12th. But yeah, he took his opportunity, didn't he? He stepped up. He was one of 4 or 5 fighters that were clamoring on X, kind of when Liam Smith's pull-out was official to get the call, and he got the nod, and he did himself no harm. He's put himself in the shot window again here at arguably slightly less notice against an even tougher opponent than Josh was.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I think we exchanged a message across the stadium saying, was that fight closer than we thought? And I had it similar to you. I had it 117, 111 on the night in Josh Kelly's favour. The scorecards, yeah. When I heard majority decision read out, I was a little bit sceptical, to say the least. But look, Ish Davis the reality is he's taken this opportunity before his time. And I don't mean any disrespect from that at all, but he's showing he's got a massive set of cojones on him to do it. But in reality, he's probably just touching British and European level at the moment. So it's a big jump for him, and it is probably coming too soon. As much as we're going to romanticize the fact he's done it twice in the space of 3 months jumping in, he's probably taking risks a lot earlier than him and his team would want him to, isn't he?
Yeah, and Bohachuk went the distance with Ortiz. Interested in your thoughts on that fight, but that's one that many people thought he won. You put him down twice. He's an elite level fighter, and as long as he is, because again we said this about the Josh Kelly thing, as long as he's tuned into the fact that he's not facing Madrimov and he's facing a lesser opponent, and as long as he doesn't overlook the danger that Davis can bring, then yeah, it's a huge step up. But I don't think going in there and losing necessarily hurts him massively in any way. It just shows that he's prepared to fight. And he will naturally find his level again and work his way back up if he's unsuccessful on Saturday night.
Yeah, mate, I completely agree with you. This is only going to rise his stock in the long run. It's not going to do him any harm losing this fight on Saturday night. And look, Eddie's already said in his interviews in Monaco last week, we will give Ish Davis a big fight back in the UK next year after what he's done in the last 2. And, that could be a British title, couldn't it? That for him is where he needs to get back down to. British and Commonwealth level, world on this will follow in coming years if he, is good enough. But we'll move on to Bohachuk. You teed me up nicely bringing up the Virgil Ortiz fight last time out. Look, for me, I can't remember exactly how I scored it, but I did have it in Bohachuk's favour, not just because of the 2 knockdowns, but because of the way he boxed as well. He managed to negate and neutralise a lot of Virgil Ortiz's strengths, didn't he?
Yeah.
And that's what was most impressive for me in that performance. Look, he's a banger. He's won all but one of his fights by stoppage. And I'm looking at his recent records. I mean, first round, 6th round, second round, 6th round, first round. He gets it done. And even in his points victory over Brian Mendoza, that was a wide victory where Mendoza didn't go down. But this is a real banger, a real dangerous fighter, isn't it, Bohachuk?
He is. I think he's got a good profile as well. I think he's active on social media. I think he's got a following behind him, and I think I probably had him winning that fight as well. As I say, it was a close fight despite the knockdowns. He didn't get it. That's probably going to make him quite angry. I think he'll be even angrier at the fact that he's not facing Madrimov. So he'll see this as a missed opportunity in some regards in a lesser fight. And I think, as I say, as long as he remains professional, which there's nothing to suggest that he won't be 100% professional, I think he comes out to send a message on Saturday.
Yeah, look, he will be 100% switched on and ready to go in this fight. Make no mistake about it, all the 154 boys are starting to come to Turkey. Obviously, Crawford's beat Madrimov out in California in the summer. Sebastian Fundora's there. We know Errol Spence, regardless of what we think about him being ranked at number 1 by the WBC, is in the mix as well. It's similar to what we just said. Ish Davis has got an opportunity to change his life. Bohachuk potentially does as well, because yes, he's got a good cult following. Yes, us as boxing hardcores know him, but to a wider audience, he probably doesn't have that appeal yet. And Saturday night is his chance to make a statement and say, hey, Terence Crawford, come on, me and you, we can dance. That's the way I look at it. I'm not sure if you would agree or disagree with that.
No, 100%. It's a strong division, isn't it? There's a lot of names there. And the good thing is they are fighting each other. Obviously, we'll not dwell on why Madrimov's pulled out, but he's got his fight lined up in February. And Bohachuk wins. He's got his name on the list to fight whoever. I think he can make a statement. I think he can put his name out there into the sort of the mainstream, because especially if, depending on if they move the order of the fights around, if he does kind of fight as the sort of fight just before the main event, then obviously people will probably be tuned in and watching by that point anyway. So I think, he's got a great opportunity to get on the Saudi train, and some big fights to be made in the future.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I mean, it looks like even Turkey's advertising it as being the co-main, so it looks like its position on the card is that. So yeah, that's when the most eyeballs, other than the main event, the most eyeballs are going to be glued in around the time that they'll be in the ring, which is also great exposure for Ish at the end of the day. Prediction time then for the co-main event. How do you see it going down between Bohachuk and Davis?
I think Bohachuk stops him again in the second half of the fight. I think Ish has probably got enough about him to get through the first few rounds, but I think he's levels behind, if I'm being honest, and I think Bohachuk sends a message and stops it maybe sort of mid rounds or just into the second half of the fight.
Yeah, look, as much as I'd love to romanticize this and say Ish Davis is going to win, this is even more of a step up than him jumping in against Josh Kelly, if we're both honest, and I think you'll agree with me there. This is a world-level operator that has had every one of his opponents, apart from one, down on the canvas. Ish Davis's biggest victory potentially could be last in the 10 rounds that this fight's going to be. If he makes it and here's the final bell, that's a victory in itself. But I don't see that happening. Bohachuk hits too hard. He's streetwise. He's clever. He'll have a lot of anger there at the fact that his original opponents pulled out and the fact he didn't get the nod last time round against Ortiz. And I see him getting a stoppage in round 7 in this one, Serhii Bohachuk. But it's a fascinating fight. And yet again, let's give all credit to Ish Davis for jumping in.
Yeah, definitely.
So just one fight left to talk about, mate. It's only a little tiny fight. Nothing really. Yeah, not too exciting. No, but it is Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury. It is the rematch of their thriller in May. Look, the IBF belt may have gone away from this fight because they couldn't help themselves. They had to cut it away and take their money. But we all know this is the undisputed fight for who is the best fighter in the division. No disrespect meant to Daniel Dubois. Your time will come, Daniel. You are the next generation, but these two here are the pinnacle, aren't they? And as my question says here on the screen, Usyk wins this fight on Saturday. There's no denying he's an all-time great. I mean, there's an argument he already is, I'm sure. But if he can do it again on Saturday night, then he just solidifies that position, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think if your record goes Joshua, Dubois, Fury, yeah, there's not going to be many heavyweights with running names like that, is there? So I think he already is an all-time great for becoming undisputed at 2 weight classes, but he absolutely cements it if he does it again on Saturday night.
Yeah, look, so his run since going up to heavyweight, Chaz Witherspoon was his first opponent. That was also a last-minute change of opponent. Witherspoon jumped in, I believe, at a week's notice. He'd undone Derek Chisora, AJ twice, Dubois, and now Fury twice. Like, that body of work. and you look through some of the names he fought at cruiserweight, Bellew, Gassiev, Bradis, Huck, who at the time were all established champions and well-known. He's done it all, really, hasn't he? And it's just, he's a special fighter. And he's come out this week. He came out in an interview today. I'm not sure if you've seen it, saying he could move back down to cruiserweights and look to do it all over again, which for me would just be taking advantage of a rather weak cruiserweight division at the moment, if I'm being honest. He probably sees that as easier than staying up at heavyweight. But for me, I've seen a lot of different opinions on the timeline in the last week or so. I'm sure you have as well. Some people saying that it was an easy fight to score in Usyk's favour. Other people saying Fury edged it, etc., etc. I think the big elephant in the room is round 9 has discontorted a lot of people's views on the fight. They take that one round and the state Fury was in and think that's the whole fight. The reality for me is that isn't true. The first 3 rounds, Usyk couldn't get near Fury. Fury was jabbing him at will, was hitting him when he wanted to, and was having his way. Middle half of the fight, Usyk came on strong. Obviously had that monumental round 9. Should it have been stopped? For me, if it was anyone other than Tyson Fury, I do wonder if the referee might have. I can understand why he didn't, but I think Tyson Fury's past experiences, shall we say, held him in good stead there. And you can make an argument he won the 11th and 12th round Fury after that 9th round. I did score the first fight for Usyk, but it wasn't a one-sided fight, was it? It was a high-level, highly competitive fight.
Yeah, I mean, I had Usyk ahead by a couple of rounds on the cards. I think you can, the first round was quite quiet. Usyk, I think, did land a shot quite at the end of that one, so I probably gave him that. But then I thought Fury went on a good run and had him in trouble. And, let's be honest, there was, you could see for the first time Usyk was struggling to deal with a man of that size who he hadn't really been in there with before. But then he made the adjustments. He always makes the adjustments, and we can talk about whether Fury got overconfident, whether he was showboating too much. I think that some of that is true, but I don't think that necessarily stops the fact that Usyk, made the adjustments he needed to make, worked out Fury, and then obviously, that 9th round. I mean, for me, I don't think that should have been stopped. I think Fury probably should have been a little bit more streetwise and gone down during that. Allowed him time to recover. The ropes ultimately kept him up, and I don't think you can stop it in a big fight like that. You can't be jumping in and stopping it, and especially with Fury's powers of recovery. But ultimately, Usyk did enough for me. But it wasn't this massive, one-sided victory, as you say. It was a very close fight that he had the better of, and he deserved to win. And he probably should have won unanimously, but it was close enough to make this really exciting second time round. Yeah,
look, this is a rare example of a rematch actually similar to Bivol and Beterbiev doing it again in February. It's another fight that actually deserves a rematch. Like, if it wasn't in the contracts, the fans would be asking for it. Of course, contractually, in both fights, the rematch was there, so we were getting it even if Fury won in the first round or Usyk, etc. So it's an intriguing fight, isn't it? I mean, what Tyson Fury will we get? He's been a lot more locked in. He hasn't been as outrageous on social media this time around, which has been quite nice to have a bit of respite from some of the social media shenanigans of Tyson Fury. The last time I think he was this locked in was before the Wilder second fight, and look what he came out and done in that Wilder second fight. There is a chance that Tyson Fury is going to come out and make Usyk look very silly on Saturday night, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to come in heavier, isn't he? I think that's what most people expect. It'll be interesting to see how heavy he is on the night. I think he knows that he was at one point on top in that fight, and if he can take advantage, lean a little bit more on Usyk, which is obviously easier said than done, but if he can do that, then he can sort of sway the fight in his direction. But I'm not convinced we get to the final bell in this fight, whichever way it goes, and we'll come on to predictions. But I think Fury will know that he probably doesn't want to go the distance with Usyk. Likewise, I think Usyk can make enough adjustments that if Fury blows out, he can do what he wasn't able to do last time, put the foot on the accelerator a little bit more and possibly get a stoppage himself. So, hey, it really is a 50-50 for me, this one.
Mate, you're segueing me perfectly with some of the things you're saying. I was going to ask, it's the oldest cliche around when it's a rematch. Oh, are we going to get round 13 or is it a new fight? I actually think this one breaks the mold because of the nature of the first fight, because of them both having good moments, bad moments, etc., etc. I think it can only carry on in the same ilk. And I'm of the same school of thought as you. I don't believe we hear the final bell in this fight one way or the other. We'll come on to predictions in a minute. But the big concern for me with Tyson Fury is John Fury is going to be there in the corner again. look, how distracting do you think that was in the first fight in May? And why on earth is he still there? Sugar Hill looks fuming when he couldn't get his instructions off in the first fight. John Fury's a sideshow. He's a distraction. He's great that he can be there, but for me, he shouldn't be anywhere near the corner. Tyson doesn't need that. We are gypsies. We are warriors. He doesn't need that shouted at him when he's got one of the best tactical minds in the game in Sugar Hill as his coach.
Yeah. I think he's probably used to having had his dad screaming, whether it was directly in the corner or from ringside for most of his career. So I probably wouldn't get too carried away with the fact that his dad was in there and he was a voice, because Tyson will be listening to who he wants to listen to. But you're right. I think you need to declutter that corner to some degree. And I think if John's going to be there, we need to learn when to keep his mouth shut. Sugar Hill has done a good job with Fury. He's turned him into a knockout machine that they wanted him to be in those wilder fights. And Andy Lee's, being there, experienced, and is a great voice also. And obviously what he's done with Joseph Parker, he commands the respect that, he should be listened to when he's talking. So, yeah, I think let's try and let's just hope John Fury doesn't try and go into the mode he went into last time, because it just derailed the whole of fight week. Tyson doesn't need that. I think we'll have a fairly calm build-up. Both of them know, Fury knows he can't ruffle Usyk. He didn't try it last time. He was quite calm last time, wasn't he? It was his dad creating all the shenanigans. Yeah. He came out at the weigh-in and he was a bit more kind of up for it. But other than that, it was just it was quite a quiet week for Tyson Fury. I think we'll see the same this week. I don't think there'll be any real psychology attempts, because it just doesn't. It's not going to work. So let's just hope all eyes are on Saturday night and both of them just come out and produce the best performance they can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, John Fury, hold the water, hold the spit bucket, rinse the gum shield out, let Sugar Hill and Andy Lee, who are a fantastic team, do the work. Be in the corner, but that's your job. Don't be doing anything more. On that first fight, obviously it's come out in recent times about Paris losing a baby during that fight week. And you've just touched on it yourself. Fury's mentality completely changed during fight week. He went from being quite calm and reserved to almost his manic, chaotic self come to weigh in on Friday in the press conference. Not making any excuses, but that personal side of the fight definitely probably was playing more of a part. And Tyson obviously kept that very quiet. I believe he didn't tell Frank, Warren, Sugar Hill, or anyone until after the fight. He dealt with that himself, which may explain why we saw such a dramatic change in his temperament during fight week, mightn't it?
Yeah, look, you got something like that going on in the background. It's tragic circumstances, and yeah, I mean, look, he'll not use that as an excuse, obviously. And I think when he had the third fight, his young child had obviously been in hospital quite seriously ill for a period, and that derailed his build up to that. I think what we probably need to talk about, and let's not overlook the fact that he did get that cut. And I think, notwithstanding the personal tragedy that he suffered, I think just what impact did that really have on the sparring when he went back into camp? Was he being very cautious? Was he, yes, getting the fitness in, but not actually getting the heavy rounds that he needed in there? And without any of that this time round, will that mean that he's better prepared?
Yeah, well, by his own admission, he couldn't spar how he needed to after that cut. He was able to do what he called light sparring, make it up what you will, but it's no doubt that it completely derailed his build-up. And obviously the fight was pushed back by 6 weeks as well. Look, we've danced around it and we've teased enough in terms of prediction. Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury 2. What is your prediction, Matt?
Well, I probably can't believe I'm going to say this, and I'll stand by for the criticism that will undoubtedly come, but I think Fury will win by knockout.
He's got the form of doing it in rematches, doesn't he? And it's when he's locked in, it's when he's focused. In terms of my prediction, I believe it will be repeat. It's nothing to do with the fact that rematches almost always go the same way as the first fight. It's nothing to do with that. It's just boxers always seem to have someone that has their number. And I think Oleksandr Usyk is that person for Tyson Fury. I think Tyson's psychological mind games are such a big part of how he builds himself into a fight. Can't do that with Usyk. Usyk's just unflappable. He's unbreakable. And for me, it's Usyk that's going to get a stoppage. I think it will be accumulative and the referee stopping it as opposed to a flash knockout, if that makes sense. But Oleksandr Usyk by stoppage, round number 9 is what I'm going for. Okay. But again, it's a fantastic fight. If Fury wins, it sets up a trilogy as well. But for me, Usyk is my pick this time around.
Yeah, and I don't think you can. I think you look at the sort of opinion across social media today in particular as the fight started to be hyped up, and it is it is pretty 50-50, and I expected a lot more in the favour of Usyk. Because you're right. I mean, I think Usyk, I probably feel a bit daft to go against Usyk because he's that good. But I just think this is the final throw of the dice for Fury. If he doesn't win, I generally think that is it over for him. I'd still love to see the Joshua fight, but I'm just not sure we will. And I think that might just motivate me enough to find a way to get it done.
Yeah, completely agree with you, mate. So that is it. That is wrapped up. The Kingdom Arena, Saudi Arabia. You've got DAZN, you've got Sky Sports, you've got TNT, you've got plenty of ways to watch it in the UK. Make sure you do get buying that pay-per-view. All that's left for me to say is a massive thank you to Matt for coming on. Matt, let everyone know what your handle is on X, because they should be dropping you a follow if they're not.
Yeah, it's at T Counterpunch, all one word. So and just give us a follow. That'd be brilliant.
Absolutely. And my at is at Liam_Tully9. And this will be the final Liam's Fight Night picks for 2024. We started back in September with Canelo and Berlanga. We've taken in some rather low-profile fight weeks along the way, but we've also had the highs of Wembley, the highs of the Four Kings Showdown. This card this weekend finishes it off nicely. For all the likes, views, comments, subscribers to the STBX channel, I thank you very much. And I'll be back in 2025 when the fights get rolling again. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. And I wish you all a happy Christmas.